morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to our expert panel, Reimagining R&D, the game-changing potential of large quantitative models, brought to you by our friends at SandboxAQ. I'm Brian Mink, co-founder and president of Data Science Connect, the world's largest data and AI community. Today, we're excited to welcome hundreds of attendees from all over the world to discuss how large quantitative models are reshaping research and development across industries. In this webinar, you'll hear from Dr. Ang Xiao, technical lead of AI and quantum applications at SandboxAQ. Ang will explore how LQMs can significantly accelerate R&D cycles, driving faster innovation and discovery. You'll walk away learning more about how LQMs complement LLMs to solve complex, data-intensive problems, as well as strategies for integrating LQMs into AI initiatives to enhance decision-making and innovation. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. To make this feel a little more in person, we suggest you add a photo to your profile and include your bio, LinkedIn profile, and other information you want your fellow attendees to see. Next, please take advantage of the Q&A and chat features throughout the webinar. Ang will be answering questions throughout, so be sure to upvote the questions you'd like him to address. And finally, to learn more about large quantitative models for your enterprise, check out the call to action below throughout the webinar from our sponsor, SandboxAQ. Now, without further ado, I'm going to kick things off by handing it off to Ang. Welcome, Ang.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us. It's all yours.
Yep, perfect. Now let me share my screen. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Ang Xiao. I'm the technical lead at SandboxAQ. I'm leading AI and quantum applications for chemistry and material science. Based on my previous experience, I worked in the chemical and material science industry for more than 2 decades. So today, my topic is reimagine R&D, the game-changing potential of the LQMs. So it's large quantitative models. So first, I want to highlight a critical challenge as an example in our materials R&D. So for example, creating a new battery materials that has high energy density, but also as safe, particularly for the EVs. As you can see, this is a tough job because we have way too many choices. We have over 10 to the power of 177 possible combinations of materials. Facing this, now we have to ask ourselves, how can we navigate such enormous chemical space, such space? The answer is we have to revolutionize the innovation of our R&D process. What I'm talking about is to harness now the power of cutting-edge technologies, such as AI simulations, to predict materials behaviors, to streamline the testing, and fast-track the development of variable materials from lab synthesis to the mass production. So, as you know, the traditional development of the new materials is very slow and very costly. It doesn't meet our kind of like today's demanding of industries and the customers. Based on our previous experience, it typically takes about 5 to 10 years to synthesize and test thousands of materials to identify a variable candidate. So the new material discovery is so difficult because the final product to meet all the critical requirements, such as properties, performance, toxicity, environmental fate, and cost. So as you can see now, this is a very complicated optimization problem. So at a high level, so what really motivates me and motivate us at SandboxAQ is trying to come up with a strategy to make material discovery more predictable, much faster, and more systematic. In the material science, the way we typically go through the process of finding the new materials, new compounds, is kind of like a design, make, test the cycle, or something equivalent. So it's more like the trial and error based process. We typically go through now this iterative process with coming up now the hypothesis solutions to our problems, and then we have to make the candidate in the lab, test the properties, performance, and hopefully now use the properties to inform the next round of design. So in theory, we go through this cycle. With more and more information, we can get smarter and smarter in our decisions. Is that true? how can we go through this process right now with a lot of human intuitions? So we have to rely on the expertise of human to tell us now what information is promising and what is less promising. What drives most of our work at SandboxAQ, actually now show in the kind of left, kind of like the loop, is that we want to revolutionize the traditional ways, right? I think we should be able to do better. So we should be able to have this sort of kind of self-driving platforms that are able to make their own decisions based on the information rather than based on the intuitions. So we'll start with generation of the meanings of compounds and virtual computers like HPC, cloud computing, and then we can build the AI-based or the physical-based model to predict the properties, performance, and finally, now we can down select the best candidate for the lab validation. Of course, now this is iterative process. After we identify the best candidates, now our lab chemists need to design, make, test, and analyze, and finally we can refine now the best candidates now for the next round of the design materials. But there is one challenge. There's a challenge for AI for chemistry. So I want to explain the challenge of AI on this slide. So the yellow and the green dots on the slide, as you can see, represent the universal chemical space. So AI at this moment has only explored a tiny fraction of this space, as shown by the yellow dots, yellow areas. So the green dots represent the new chemical space has not been tested, has not been evaluated in the past. So when AI tries to predict outside the yellow area, such as the red X, it's often wrong. Why? Because AI, even including the most recent or the latest generated AI models, is only good with Fermi data. But for chemistry, for physics, the training data for AI is very limited compared to the language model, right? Compared to the large language models, for example. So how can we tackle this problem? The answer, the solution is that we have to leverage the physics. That means that we can enhance AI with physics-based simulations to improve now the prediction accuracy for the chemistry, physics, biologies. Here, the blue dot represents the new data points generated by the physical-based simulations, generated by the first principle calculations, or based on some kind of the numerical equations. The blue dot fill the chemical space beyond AI's current knowledge, current capabilities. By integrated physics, now we can train AI to predict outside yellow areas. So for example, like the green areas. This approach enhances AI's capabilities and make it a powerful tool for predicting chemical reactions, materials properties, performance. So we call this model, we call this tool, this approach as LQMs, large quantitative models, compared to the large language models, LLMs. So let me give you a few examples of LQM models, especially now from the SandboxAQ. SandboxAQ actually is the first company in the world bring up this idea about LQMs. And the SandboxAQ is SaaS-based company, and we spun out from Google in 2022. And in 2022, we raised $500 million. And just a month ago, we had the second fundraiser, another $300 million. So we totally raised $800 million to support our customers to develop now the large quantitative models. And our CEO is Jack Henry, and our chairman is Eric Schmidt, the previous CEO and chairman of the Google. And SandboxAQ actually developed now a multiple bespoke and multidisciplinary large quantitative models. And their applications now in the many areas, for example, like the EV batteries, polyolefin production, superalloys for the armored vehicles, PFAS eliminations, and drug and new catalyst discovery. So on the slide, I also want to showcase now a selection of our customers today. So including the major names, for example, Dow Chemical, Novonix, US Army, and many others. And so this is kind of like demonstrate our kind of like industry engagement. with the material science and chemical companies. We also have the strategic collaborations with NVIDIA. We leverage now NVIDIA's H100 GPU clusters and also the CUDA DeepRG algorithm technologies for developing and optimization kind of like of the LQMs. So overall, now it conveys SandboxAQ's advanced computational capabilities and also our strong industrial partnership. So in these presentations, I really want to give you like several real applications of LQMs in the material science, in the chemical, and also in the R&D process. I want to showcase how LQMs can improve now the speed of R&Ds. I want to give you 4 examples today. I want to cover 4 real case studies. So the first one is in the battery applications to use LQM for the battery cycle life prediction. Second, it's automated now chemical data extraction, leverage large language model, large quantitative model to smartly and automatically now extract now millions of the data from the millions of papers, patent applications. So the third is the ab initio material discovery. So for example, catalyst discovery, solid state electrolyte discovery, how we can leverage now these tools for the revolutionize now the new material discovery. And last but not least, now is kind of low-hanging fruits, we say, formulation process optimizations, how we can change, image now the conventional industry by leveraging the data science and the machine learning. At the end of each case studies, I will stop, I will pause, and I'll give you time to ask me questions, and we can exchange some thoughts from my side and from your side. So let me firstly cover now the battery cycle life prediction. So for the battery cycle life prediction, so I want to firstly highlight now what is the current way to predict now the battery cycle life. So the state of the art model actually predicting the battery cycle life is using the capacity and voltage curve. We call the QV curves. So QE curves for the normal cyclers lack of accuracy because of the low fidelity data from the cycler. Our model leveraging the high fidelity data. So we use our partner, for example, the Novonix, now HPC equipment. So it's a ultra high precision colorimetry equipment to collect the data with high accuracy and also high precision. So as you can see on the right corner on the slide, now this apple to apple compare now 4 different kind of like cyclers. Now the first 3 the regular cycler, and the last one is the Novonix cycler. As you can see, the other regular cycler lack of accuracy and lack of kind of like the precision. Only the Novonix HPC cycler can give us now the accurate and precise data. So we start with now the high fidelity data from HPC, and we collect the data such as the CE, economic efficiency, charge endpoint capacity slippage, delta voltage, all those kind of like the electrochemical data on the commercial cells, for example, commercial prismatic cells, cylinder cells, and then we will use like the proprietary algorithms. So it's our algorithms for the feature engineering and data transformation. So give you one example. For example, we developed now the module of the data loader and data parser. So we also applied some mathematical transformation. So for example, like the spline feature, spline function to average. So which smooths out the data to review the underlying trends. So by using those advanced features, our HPC model has significant benefits, right? So as you can see now, there's the power plot on the right lower corner of the slide. So it shows our model significantly has lower MAE, mean absolute error value, compared to the traditional model, compared to the state-of-the-art model. So another example is that LQMs also enable the lower capabilities for predicting battery cycle life. So for example, I want to highlight now the high resolution DQDV curves. It's the derivative capacity divided by the derivative voltage, kind of like the curves. So the DQDV curves now allow for the robust feature extraction from the raw battery data. So the differences now in the voltage and the capacity curves. So even just from the single cycle provided now a meaningful insights for the model training. So one example I want to show you on the slide is that we use the DQDV at a cycle number 5 to cycle number 6. And the model achieves a better MAE, mean absolute error, of the 46 cycles with R squared of 0.99. So it's a fantastic result. So this result actually shows the power of the extracting key features early in the battery cycle life to predict performance. I want to pause here. So to close my first case studies now using LQMs for the battery cycle life prediction, and just to see now if you have any questions, please feel free to have your questions now in the Q&A section. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so if there's no more questions regarding the first application, I will move on to the next session. So the next session, next examples is about now the chemical data extraction. So it's automating now chemical data extraction. Let's first now look at now the tool SandboxAQ developed. Now we call the extract EXTRAQT tool. So this tool actually is powered by the large language models, LLMs. So we can use this tool to analyze thousands of research papers. So this tool helps us quickly extract and verify the material's properties to create a useful data set for the LQM's model training, refining, and also improvement. So the workflow of extract is that we start with some kind of full texts of the research papers, and then we use extract to process information and output another data set of the key materials properties. I want to give you an example. So this example is our work with US Army. So for example, now we use our proprietary extractor tool and collected data over 6,000 metal anode materials. After filtering, now we end up with 2020 anodes and meet now the specific criteria, such as now the lead-free, nickel-free, and finally now we optimize our data set down to 48 metal anodes with complete kind of like properties values. So the result now is very impressive. Our model showed 90% precision and recall. We only use about 10 minutes human time, human setup time, and 3 hours computer time on the GPU. So for example, using ChatGPT 4, and we have additional about 2 hours now data standardization. So next slide, I just want to show you kind of a demo, a quick demo, how extractor tool works. So let me play the video and I can explain kind of like a process, how the extract works. So this is our kind of the demo. So our extract workflow consists of the 3 components. Like I said, we start with sourcing data. The sourcing data, SandboxAQ partnered with Spring Nature and the Core, and we have the code to process the data, and we have the input for the extract workflow. So the extract now is engineered zero-shot workflow. So it's leveraged now the large language model, for example, like OpenAI's GPT-4 and others to kind of like extract data, either chemical data or any data from the research papers, validate now the accuracy at the same time. So and then we can use now the data to create now the useful kind of like data set. The useful data set containing all the important useful materials information. We also solve some problems for the error and the hallucinations. So first stage, now we will export now the necessary Python libraries. And after that, we will have the user to define kind of like now what is the scope of the search and what are the properties. So in this case, now I will use yield streams for the anodes. So this is our project with US Army, and we can pick up the model here. We use now the ChatGPT 4 norm. And after the initial search, we end up with about like the 3,500 papers, documentations containing yield streams and anodes. And then we can download on the first 20 papers. Now for the purpose of the demo, And after the download, now we can clean the data, use the code. Now we have automated the coding process to clean the data. For example, we can convert kind of the messy, unstructured XML files to the kind of the structured, cleaned, and also readable texture files. After that, now we will apply additional like the split technologies to cut now the sentence to pieces for the classification. We also apply the filtration, for example, like define some kind of units of yield strength to narrow the search and speed up now the process operation. And finally, now you can see this, we will end up with kind of like our input for the extract. The 309 kind of like the data text passengers for the extract workflow. And after that, so we can run the extract workflow, leverage large language model. As you can see, we can also estimate the time and the cost for the extraction process. Everything is very transparent. And I want to show you now the final data set has already collected now this data. So as the column you see, there's a materials name, the value, and the unit for the yield strengths. And we also extracted that information from the DOI and also the full text passengers. So which is very kind of like has the traceabilities. Let's take a look at the first examples. Now this is a numeric-based element materials. Let's click and take a look at now the text passengers. The value is 191 megapascal. And then we can click now the full text passage. And you can see we will begin with now the formulation of the animal materials. And we will collect the data, information, yield strength, tensile strength, elongation, and all the properties, and also with corresponding now the values. So the model actually now you can see correctly identified yield strength with 191 megapascal. So they smartly collected this relationship, and the value is correct. It's only value correct. Let's back to the demo. So you see we can show now the time and also the cost of now the extracted workflow. So with that, I want to have another pause about now the second case studies, just in case now if there's any questions in the Q&A. Let me take a look at the Q&A. Okay. Okay. Question is that what type of data is required for training and running of the model? The data required for the training of the model actually now is just based on our collaboration with now the publishers, with like the Spring Nature and with the core technologies. So the model actually now we just leverage now the large language model, LLMs, for example, like the ChatGPT-4, whatever. And we just now set up now like the smart way for the prompt engineers, and the prompt engineers can analyze now all the text passengers, the clean text passengers from our proprietary code, right? And then we can establish now the kind of a data set. So the second question, what architecture between the LQMs? So architecture LQMs, now I can explain that in the next session about now ab initio infrastructure, ab initio material discovery. But the architecture actually now we just leverage, for example, like the transformer and the graph neural network and the message passing neural network. So and the major thing, the different LQM is that we leverage now those kind of like existing architectures, but we will generate now the synthetic data. So once we have the synthetic data, for example, like the machine learning force field to calculate now the energy strengths for the certain class of materials, we can fine-tuning the large quantity model, fine-tuning now the foundation model of chemistry, and further improve now the accuracy of the model. So that's some kind of a definition of now the large quantity model. Okay, so if is there no other questions for the second section, I will move on to the third questions. So maybe hopefully now that can provide you more details about the training data, about now the architecture of the large quantity model. So let's move on. The third session I want to cover is about the ab initio material discovery. Let's look at now the LQM workflows. So this workflow actually can help discover new materials. LQM is a smart pipeline. It starts with now the chemical formula or maybe the chemical compositions, formulas of candidates to predict now the stability through the graph neural networks. So graph neural networks actually now is our architecture. After that, now we can apply the ab initio random structure search and also DFT calculations. So it's a density functional theory calculations to calculate now the energy and the interatomic potentials. So those are critical properties information for the chemistry and the material science. And then we can use now the kind of like the attributing algorithm to control the loop again, learning, refining, and improving our prediction. So finally, now the energy and interatomic potentials from the pipeline can be used for the downstream property predictions. So for the discovery of next generation materials, such as now heterogeneous catalyst, layered structures such as the battery cathode, and also like solid state electrolyte materials. I want to cover several examples of application LQMs for the new materials discovery. So here I want to give you first example using LQMs now to discover the new battery electrolyte additives. The process actually now started with now the meanings of compounds and narrow it down to a few promising candidates. As you can see now, this funnel process will using both surrogate model and also the accurate quantum models. For the surrogate models, now we can predict now the key molecular properties, such as the boiling point, toxicity, melting point, viscosity, etc., based on the data from the large language model extraction or from the well-known data set. And then we can use like the accurate quantum chemistry models to further narrow down the scope. So for example, we can calculate now the dipole moment, chemical hotness, and the polarizability to narrow down the scope from the meanings compounds to a few compounds. So it's kind of like now to identify the kind of like the needle from a series of the haystacks. This workflow actually helps us narrow down the massive chemical space and reduce the discovery time from years to just several days. So the second case studies now is regarding now the solid state materials as the battery cathode materials. As we know, the materials rapidly now conducted oxygen are critical for the variety of applications, especially for the energy storage application, energy storage devices, such as the fuel cells and the solid oxide mental air redox batteries. And we recently make some kind of advancement using the LQM-driven discovery of the new kind of like the ion conductor, which is like the interstitial oxygen ion conductor. So the materials is LMS. So using DFT, density function theory, so we can identify now the correlation between the oxygen p bonds and also the catalytic performance. The histogram on the left side on the screen actually demonstrates the frequency of the materials with different energy levels, help us identify now the LMS materials with outstanding oxygen kinetics. On the right side, you can see there's a similar funnel search process for screening the tens of thousands materials, right? So this demonstrates our comprehensive approach to find now the LMS materials using the LQM workflow. So for example, from the structured features to the thermomechanical property prediction calculation, from the thinkability simulations calculations to the ab initio simulations of the properties. And finally, now we will identify materials for the experiment verifications. And the third examples I want to show you about LQM models is trying to solve some kind of challenge problems from the environment. So it's PFAS materials. We know the PFAS, they're not the native foreign chemicals. So it's never decomposed, and it's kind of like for many years stay in the soil, in the atmosphere, in the drinking water. So it leads to cancer and lead to some kind of the chronic diseases. It's a very, very urgent problem. So we need to tackle the PFAS problems. So LQMs actually show some potential solving the PFAS remediation and also PFAS discovery or PFAS alternatives problems. So in the domain of the quantum chemistries, the efficiency, scalability, and accuracy are kind of unmet needs for our customers. So we're very proud to showcase the breakthroughs using our kind of IFCI algorithms. So IFCI algorithm is the incremental full configuration interaction technology. So this is the kind of advanced technology compared to DFT. So we deploy now that kind of algorithm, and we also scale up that algorithm, leverage that 1 million CPU cores on AWS to calculate now the dissociation energies of the alpha CF bond in the PFAS molecules. So for example, I want to give you a typical example here. So this is a PFOA materials, oxalate acid materials. So this PFOA materials has very high bioaccumulations, and our algorithms accurately now predict now the CF bond dissociation energy, and now this shows the first step to address now the environment challenges. Our effort actually illustrate now the path to break up now those forever chemicals, promising a cleaning, safer environment for the future generations. So with that, I will pause now here for the kind of like the third kind of applications of LQMs, and I will take a look at now the questions in the Q&As. So the question is that we still use an LLM, large language model architecture. We don't go through any quantitative equations that LQMs just use quantitative equations to obtain more data to fine-tuning LLMs. Yes and no. So the answer is yes, is that we only use LLMs for the data extraction. So as you can see for the second case studies, and we only use LLMs, large language models, right? That's it's an architecture we use. The only very differentiating thing I would say from SandboxAQ from others is that we have now the streamlined pipeline. So we have automated process, leverage LLMs to extract chemical data. But for the other applications, for example, the battery materials, catalyst materials discovery, and we only use LLMs for the data extraction, for the initial data setup. But we will use like the quantum model, we use like the quantum chemistry models to generate synthetic data. So I'll give you an example. So for example, now we want to study now the new catalyst. So the new catalyst now we consist of, for example, like the copper, platinum, and many other transition metals and the transition metal oxides. And on the surface of catalyst now there's tens of now hundreds of reactions. For example, now we talk about now the syngas reaction from the carbon monoxide, hydrogen convert to the alcohol, methane, methanol, something like that. So there's a lot of chemical reactions, right? So, and now we need to generate now the synthetic data. We need to simulate now the chemical reactions on the surface of now the catalyst. And once we have the synthetic data, we have the tens of thousands of synthetic data, then we can use the transformer architecture. We can use now the graph neural network architectures to train the model to predict now the energies, predict now the strength, predict now the other properties without running those kind of the time-consuming, expensive quantum chemistry simulation anymore. So that's the unique benefits of our LQMs. And of course, now I really like your suggestion, right? Like fine-tuning model. So of course, for example, like we know the Meta has like the foundation model for chemistry focused on the catalyst, and Google also publishes some kind of data on the foundation model for the other class of materials, for example, the battery cathode materials. So those foundation models also could be the kind of like the starting point, right? Even based on those starting point, SandboxAQ can generate another synthetic data beyond that based on our customer needs and further extend the scope of now the foundation model and fine-tuning those foundation model using our kind of like architectures. So that's a differentiation between LQMs and LLMs. So based on the for the materials and the chemistry discovery. Okay, let's see another question. How does extractor differ from other traditional machine learning models? That's a very good question. So extract actually, so the core of extract actually now is two things, I would say. The first one is large language model. So for example, now we can use ChatGPT-4, we can use the Gemini, we can use now latest Llama 3. It's very versatile. So we can use any kind of large language model. But the most important thing is that how to smartly now to feed now the kind of the prompt engineer. Do we have the streamlined process? For example, do we have the process to search now the current keyword from the millions of papers? Do we have the subscription, right, with the publishers? For example, with the Nature, with the Core, with the Elsevier, SandboxAQ already established now that process. We have the streamlined process to automatically now embedding every steps in the one-stop tool. So our customers, that means only use our tool from the starting point, like the sourcing data, to like the data processing. Data processing is very critical because we want to remove unnecessary information. We want to convert now the unstructured data to the kind of like the readable texture files. And we also want to further narrow down, for example, like based on unit of the materials, based on the certain other criteria. We only want to see the kind of like the text passengers containing the information we want to extract. And then we run the large language model, right? And then we run the ChatGPT-4 now, for example. And then our process will automatically now format the data set. And our data set can further be used for the machine learning model training, whatever. So to answer your question, basically that our extract now is kind of like the all-in-one shop cover now the whole process for the smart data extraction. The next question, how does ab initio method improves the prediction accuracy of this model to data-driven models? This is a great question. So as we know, the data-driven model lack of accuracy because data-driven model can only predict the properties now with the known data. So first I share that. So when we talk to the customers, now they have a lot of concerns, right, using just the pure data-driven process. So for example, like the viscosity of the fluids, or maybe some kind of like the dipole moment of fluids, right? The existing database is very small. I would say it's only about 10,000 compounds, to my knowledge. Using ab initio method, so we can generate now the virtual structures. So I want to give you I want to give you an example like the fluids, right? So fluids for the data center immersion cooling. That's a good example. So small molecules, but now not all the small molecules. Now the dipole moment has to be calculated. So we have the QM9 data set, right, containing now the dipole moment. But QM9 data set or QM11 right now, so it's very small. It's only about like 27 or less than 100,000 materials. But for chemical space, you can think about it, the enormous, right? The trillions of the organic molecules can be drawn virtually, right? Can be simulated virtually. So then we can use now ab initio method, or we can say the LQMs, right, to generate another structure in the computer, and then we can use various now the ab initio method. DFT is a very traditional method. SandboxAQ not only use DFT, we also have the IFCI. As I mentioned now, it's kind of like the incremental full configuration iteration technologies to solving the scoring equation and to calculate electronic properties. For example, like a dipole moment, for example, like the polarizability, and many other properties. So we can add those data to the original data-driven kind of like the database, right? Then we can extend now the search, and also we can improve now the accuracy. Because like I said, if we use data-driven model to predict now some kind of the new data outside of like the chemical space, it's often wrong. Use ab initio, extend the space, and also improve the accuracy. Next question. So can OpenAI Google also generate more data from the first principles and enhance their model like the ChatGPT-4 norm, so it predicts the viscosity with better accuracy? I think so. Yeah. So Google, if they want, yeah. So Google can definitely now hire computational chemists, for example, right, to current now the DFT calculation, for example, and then generate the data. But the point is that now this is not now their kind of like core business. So for the Google now, they're more kind of like the software platform engineering company. And SandboxAQ, our team actually consists of now the material scientists, right? So we have domain knowledge. So without domain knowledge, now sometimes we find out now the model training is not accurate. So especially, for example, like for different kind of properties for different applications, we need to know if now the structure is feasible or not feasible. And I would say those kind of like the high-tech company like Google, Meta, don't they don't have this kind of like domain knowledge at this moment. Okay, so if no more questions, I want to move on to the number 4 applications. So the number 4 applications now is about LQMs for the process and formulation optimizations. So this is we call like low-hanging fruits project. And first, the case studies I want to share with you is application of LQMs now for the battery materials, battery electron additives discovery. And so our mission here on this slide is to optimize now the electrolyte formulations for the silicon anode materials and for the high FEC containing at a high temperature and high voltage storage conditions. We know the silicon materials in the battery need high loading FEC, the monofluorine ethylene carbonates, but high FEC at a high temperature, high voltage conditions will have like the side effects with the gassing problems. We have to optimize the loading of additives to minimize the gassing and to maximize the cycle performance. The chart on the screen actually is just to show you our innovative approach, right? So this is kind of a contour plot representing now the level of gas warning in the prismatic cells, in pouch cells, with the yellow dots are kind of like our kind of experiment data. With AI guided experiment recommender, we have pinpointed now the optimum formulation. Optimum formulation actually now has been marked by the green star. At this point, now the performance of electrolyte or the kind of like the cycle life is maximized and the gassing is reduced greatly, mostly. So with this kind of like the AI-driven optimization process, so it means that now we can have the faster, more cost-effective path to develop the new and patentable electrolyte formulations. For this case, we help our customers to discover the new pattern using the new additive formulations. Oops, sorry. So next examples, now very similar, still covering now the LQMs for improving battery electrolyte formulations optimizations. And so battery electrolyte is another areas have a lot of potential using AI for the better optimizations, because battery electrolyte contain a lot of variables. For example, it typically contain the 3 salts, 3 solvents, and many additives. So this is a high-dimensional optimization problem. So normally, find the best formulation mixture would take a lot of trials, right? So our kind of the partners years to kind of like the analyze now the formulation to find the best formulations for the cathode anode. So using our algorithms, typically now it's kind of like the next experiment recommenders can recommend what will be the next experiment smartly, and then we can do much less test. So the graph on the right side compared 2 ways of optimizations. So the smart way we call the Bayesian optimization, right? So it's shown by the green or the blue dot, and the random search now it's the orange color just to pick random. So the y-axis now just to show you the root mean square error of the model. It's kind of like the RMSE. So basically now you will see the lower the better. And you can see now when we do more tests, now our AI-driven algorithm can get experiment smarter, better, and much faster than the random ones. In the end, now our algorithms cost down the number of experiments by 60%. So it significantly now saves time and money for our customers. The next examples now, I want to talk about how SandboxAQ optimized now the fast charging profiles for the 18650 batteries. Those batteries containing now the graphite, GR as anode, and LFP, lithium iron phosphate as a cathode. It's a very popular cell chemistry for using in the EVs and using for as a major component for energy storage. So, but for the EVs, now definitely now we want to have the higher rate charge, right? Higher rate charge and discharge, and the how we can find now the optimum charge profile and maximize now the cycle life of the battery. That means now we want to maximize now the cycle life, but don't sacrifice the kind of charge rate. When we have the very high charge rate, we don't really sacrifice the cell performance. So we use like the closed loop algorithms for the next experiment recommenders. So this algorithms now finding the best charging protocol using only 30 experiment tests. So we basically reduce the experiment time by 37%. So this is kind of like the multi-round, right? The full round search process. And each round, now we will recommend some kind of the charging algorithm from 2C to 5C. C read now is just more or less like the charge the battery in 1 hour. It's 1C charge rate. So we optimize now the several C charge rate to the different batteries, and then we improve now the results. So the table actually showed the best protocol we identified. So we're achieving the balance between the cycle life and also the C-read charge protocols. This approach actually saves time and also the resources when deliver the high performance. So with that, I want to have another quick pause for the four case studies now using LQMs for the formulation and the process optimizations. Okay, so if no questions, so I will move on to suggest to close. And I want to emphasize now the growing impact of AI on the various now the market verticals and in today's my presentations. So as we know today, the major AI's application is in language, graphics, videos. Now this is fine, right? It's good for the marketing, good for the knowledge transfer learning, and for many other kind of like the commercial applications. However, now we should really think about now what is the future's AI. So at SandboxAQ, we believe the future's AI, the potential of AI, rely on AI's potential to solve now the more complicated problems, to solve the problem, to revolutionize now the more complex industry sectors. So for example, like the chemistry, for example, like the physics, and for example, like the biology. At SandboxAQ, so SandboxAQ, we are spin out from Google in 2022. We actually funded in Google in 2016, and we spin out from 2022. And after we became an independent company, we raised $800 million. And our mission at SandboxAQ is to focus on AI's application for the physics, chemistry, drug discovery, and the biologies. So our large quantitative models are designed to solve the high dimensional problems. So that will impact now those kind of critical sectors. So this includes now the advancement. So in the battery chemistry, new materials like cathode materials, new anode materials, helping us unlock the significant market opportunities across those trillion-dollar industries. With that, I will close. Thank you very much for your attention today. Please let me know if you have any questions. So, for example, if you have other questions now, and feel free to reach out to me and to my business director. His name is Jeff, and his email is also on the slide. And we're happy to discuss further. Thank you again.
Thanks, Ang. Excellent presentation. Really enjoyed all the insights. For those of you, many of you asked when you'd be able to watch the recording. If you missed any of the webinar or want to rewatch anything, the recording will be available a few minutes after the webinar if you refresh this page. We'll also be sending an email to all registrants with a link to the webinar, and all of our webinars are available on our YouTube channel. So this one will be on there starting tomorrow. So encourage you to watch anything that you missed or rewatch anything that piqued your interest. Thanks again, Ang, and thanks again to our partners at SandboxAQ for making this excellent webinar possible. And we'll see all of you again next time. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you.